And our guest this morning in the third seat is Rick Kasparek. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming over today.
You're welcome.
Rick is spending his... it's hard getting folks here on Monday morning, trust me, because after the weekend. But he's here because he's got something he wants to talk to you about. And that is the new book that he's written called Knight of the Grail Code.
Knight of the Grail Code, yes.
Tell me about it. What is it about?
Well, it's about chivalry in our world, the need for chivalry in our modern-day society.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about simple manners. Manners are kind of an outgrowth of a sincere heart that believes in a code of conduct. And basically, chivalry is that code of conduct. When you look at Christian chivalry, it all comes down to those laws that were given on Mount Sinai and were again reiterated to us in the two greatest commandments. And if you look down through history, I've done a study in the book, and it basically shows that all of our codes of conduct, all of our honor codes, the same codes that are in the military, are all based on these specific subjects.
Well, unfortunately, Rick, I would assume that you'd have to agree that we've lost our moral compass in the United States.
We have, and that is also brought up in the book. Basically, what we look at is there have been some studies, and it's been over the last few years, and there's been sociologists and psychologists, and they've all looked at these things, and they basically find that there's 6 dimensions or parts of a moral code that are universal. I mean, all of the other cultures believe in the same thing. For instance, one of them is care over harm. We all value care. We don't value harm. One might be respect for legitimate authority, as opposed to
Rebellion.
Rebellion, yeah, right. And so all of these things are basically detailed in the book and how they can be brought together to form a moral compass for an individual.
But if we're talking about chivalry, we're talking about an attitude that would put you last.
Exactly.
Oh, but unfortunately, our society, and we're constantly preached to, that we're number one.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's all about me.
Yes.
Because I deserve it.
Exactly. This is taking the person and switching things around and making other people the center of our attention.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, loving your neighbor and loving God. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to be wishy-washy and let people roll over you, because as we know, Christ stood up for quite a few things.
Mm-hmm.
When the money lenders in the temple, things like that. If you see people that are harming others, it's time to take action. We just saw the movie that came out here a while back, or a couple of weeks ago, that hit #1.
American Sniper.
American Sniper.
He was a perfect example.
A moral code, right. He was a perfect example of an ordinary man that did extraordinary things because he felt he was called to do that.
Yeah, I remember the beginning of it when his father told him, you're not going to be a wolf, and you're not going to be a sheep. You're going to be the sheepdog.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Now, Rick, you're not a pastor.
No, I'm not a pastor.
Okay. And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure everyone knows, Rick Kasparek. And it's great to me to see people that are here in the Permian Basin that feel called to do something like this, to write a book like this. How long did it take you to pull all this together? It's not a long read, folks. I'll be honest with you.
It's not a long read. It's about 150 pages, and basically what called me to do it was.
I mean, how can you beat morality into somebody in only 150 pages, Rick? Let's be honest.
You can't. All you can do is give them the guidelines, and then they need to decide if what's right for them.
Rick, has this come about as a result of God being taken out of everything? Because if you take God out, you're going to take the moral compass, the 10 Commandments and the 2 greatest commandments away, because you're not allowed to discuss those things. And people have filed lawsuits saying, you can't display the 10 Commandments here.
Exactly.
As a result, we're floating with society and what's wrong.
Exactly. What we need to do is we need to be describing our morals for society. But instead, society is dictating what our morals are.
But see,
The tables are turned.
it's so unique because I was raised with American values by our culture, by our country, things that our country was founded on for the first 200 years. What went wrong?
I don't know. I really don't know where we lost our way. I don't know. I don't think it was any one thing. I think it's been a series of things. And it's time to wake up, because we are, if you look at what happened in the last days of Rome, we're following that roadmap.
Yeah, I'm afraid
And
you're right.
that led to the fall of Rome. It's going to lead to the fall of the United States. It's going to lead to the fall of several cultures. But that's where we need to take a stand. It's time.
How important is it for parents to espouse these values to their children, or grandparents to their grandchildren?
Extremely important. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book, was as a father and as a grandfather, I took a hard look at the world we're going to be leaving our children.
It's
That's
a mess.
not the world I want to leave my children or my grandchildren. And so this, at least, is a first step for me to try and do something about it.
Now, where do you find the book?
You find the book, it's available online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or at Westbow Press.
Okay.
There's a website that I put out there that will give people links to all of those, and it's called knightofthegrailcode.com.
N-I-G-H-T.
K-N-I-G-H-T.
Yes, as in Knights of the Round Table type.
Exactly.
Chivalrous people.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly it. I've heard folks who have seen the book, and how long has it been out? A couple of months, maybe?
It's been out a couple of months, right.
And I started to ask you, well, how long did it take you to pull all this together? Is this something that you've been working on for months and years and days and hours, or is it?
I think it was a call that has been there in my heart for a couple of years now, but basically when I started,
Took you 6 months to prepare.
right.
Somebody, a young man out there who may be listening or watching to this program right now, look at you and they look at me, and of course they look at Robert and say, it's three old guys. It's three old guys. And their perspective is going to be different than ours. Why is this important to them?
It's interesting. I've had some young people read it, and I've had a couple of people come up to me and say, wow, you really changed my perspective. I think it's a call to the heart, and the call to the heart spans any age. And it's just a matter of, when you look at the book, I've got the facts in there that kind of show how we've gone off track, and it's hard to argue with the facts. I mean, truth is truth.
It's hard to convince people that they need, Jesus summarized it. He who would be first must be last.
Yes.
You have to be a servant to all. I come in contact with a lot of young people at the university, and I mean, there's still hope. They still adhere to the value of education. They still feel that hard work and being honest in class, of course, there's consequences if you're not, but they still adhere to that moral code that you don't cheat.
Right.
So I think there's still hope for us, but yet it appears that so many of the youth today have absolutely no inclination to engage in chivalry at all.
Well, and it's interesting, there was a study done, and again, I show this in the book, but if you look at the last 3 generations and ask people how religious they are, that percentage has dwindled for every generation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can see that in churches today. You can see that.
Exactly, and part of the thing that we were told was we need to pass on our values to our children. Somehow we're missing that.
Golly, that's but it emanates all the way from Washington D.C. down.
Yes, it does.
An attitude of I'm most important, an attitude. I mean, we were making fun of NBC's anchor, you know, he embellishes the story, just literally makes it up.
Right.
All designed to attract attention to himself. That's what our society espouses. That's what our society admires. How can I shock you? How can I draw attention? How do I get the most amount of money? It's all about me. I deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve it. And really materialism more than anything.
Yes.
At any price.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The ends justify the means.
Exactly. And that's what we've been taught to believe is correct. And I don't know who's taught us that, because it certainly wasn't my parents.
It wasn't my parents, so did we teach our children that, and they in turn are teaching our grandchildren that? Is it in the last 2 generations that this is, that the switch has been flipped?
I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but I just know that things are changing and we're listening to the wrong messages. There's a darkness that's growing out there.
It happened. I can track this. My parents took me to church.
Right.
Okay, and I went to church, Sunday school. Went up to Sunday school, all the stuff that we do in our church. And then when I got out on my own, I went a lot, but not as much as my parents did. Okay. We did the same thing with our kids. Of course, we had less to go. We didn't go as often, but we went. Our kids went through the Sunday school thing, the whole thing. And now in that generation of kids, they're, but I got, but there's other things we got to do. I got to get ready for work tomorrow. I got, any number of reasons. And it just keeps on chiseling away and away and away.
Exactly.
And is it church, or does it have to be church? Does it have to be church? First of all, let's start there.
Is it religion or is it spiritual?
Is it, yeah.
To me, it's religion. It's
Okay.
church. You have to have other like-minded individuals around you, and that's where you find them. Spirituality is important. Psychologists will tell us that that's a very dynamic piece of being a healthy human being. There's even a doctor that has identified a portion of the brain that is associated with prayer.
It's funny that you should say that, because there have been studies that people who have strong faith have higher recovery rates from illnesses.
Exactly. And you wonder why. It's because there is something out there. And what we need to do is we need to reconnect with that. Some people won't call it God. They're afraid to in this society, but God is out there, and He's waiting for us to return. So
when it's not politically correct to say God, or how do you say it? Because various groups use God's name in a lot of different ways, that it becomes scary on how you use it and who says it to who, to when, to where.
And what it means.
Rick Kasparik's our guest this morning. If you're listening on radio, he's the author of a new book called Night of the Grail Code. You talked just briefly about where you can get a copy of this. It is a short read. Now, I'm not making fun of that. I'm just simply saying that while we are in the consumer today is somebody who wants, okay, all right, you want me to feel better? You want me to get morality here? Give it to me in 3 pages, 24 pages.
I'll give you 17.3 seconds, the average attention span of an adult.
I give you 30 seconds to give me as much morality as you can, then I got to go do something else. But it's the kind of thing that hey, you ought to take time and pick it up and look at it.
right. And admittedly, it's not an easy read. There's a lot of footnotes in here.
No, not footnotes.
You're quoting scripture? Or the scriptural footnotes?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Others are actually studies that were done by scientists, and I refer you back to those because the facts are the facts.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So I want people to be armed with those.
Most people don't think that scientists and scripture can go in the same book.
Oddly enough, they can.
They can, can't they? Oddly enough. Go figure. We were just talking about that story a while ago about the young man that the mom prayed.
Yeah,
and
the mom prayed.
came
And
Right,
it
I
was
heard about
unbelievable.
doctors.
Yeah, the doctor said it's a miracle. It's a bona fide miracle.
It is.
Yeah.
And
No
it happened.
explanation. I had a friend years ago who told me that he worked with somebody who was an atheist, did not believe in God. And they had a conversation one time. It got rather heated. And my friend who is a believer said, well, let me put it to you this way. If you're right and I'm wrong, we're both worm food. But if I'm right and you're wrong, I'm going to heaven and you're going to hell. Now, young people think they're bulletproof and they don't see that day coming, but that day's coming.
Yes, it is.
First-time author, am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Rick Kasparik's book, Night of the Grail Code. Tell them again where they can get a copy of this, Rick.
You can find it at Barnes & Noble online,
Okay.
or at Amazon online, or at Westbow Press, or you can go to knightsofthegrailcode.com. That's
Okay.
with a K. And I have links to all three of those stores.
Very good.
And it's night, or not nights, but night, right?
K-N-I-G-H-T.
T. Okay, not. Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. Rick, thanks for coming over this morning.
All right,
Enjoyed
thank
our
you.
conversation, and I really have to recommend you pick up a copy of this. I'm going to try to talk him out of a copy myself, so stick around.
All
This
right.
is The Morning Drive on News Talk KCRS.